I don't think I've ever been this confused in my life. The realization hit me hard, like the floor dropped out from under me. And I don't even know how to start this. I'm not here to get sympathy or validation. Honestly, I'm just trying to make sense of the mess I've found myself in. I always thought I was a good husband. Reliable, steady, the kind of guy who listens and supports. I never imagined my marriage would be something I had to question like this. But here I am, staring at a screen, writing out things I'm not sure I'll ever be able to forget. It began on a Tuesday, the kind of day where nothing's supposed to stand out. It was after work, and my wife, Claire, came home earlier than usual, but something about her felt different. She didn't say much. We didn't have our usual conversation about the day. It was like she was just going through the motions, almost mechanical. I noticed she didn't even kiss me, which was strange. But I brushed it off. Maybe she was just tired. Later that night, Claire went to bed early, which was unusual, considering she typically stayed up with me watching TV, scrolling through her phone, or reading. I didn't think much of it at first. But when I woke up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, I found the door to the spare room wide open. That was odd, because Claire never slept in there. Ever. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling in my gut, but it was impossible. Something had changed. Something I couldn't explain. I walked into the room and saw her phone on the nightstand, still buzzing with notifications. She wasn't one to leave her phone unattended, especially when it had been going off like that. I reached over and, without thinking too much about it, picked it up. There were messages, lots of them. They weren't the usual work-related chats or friendly exchanges with her friends. These were different, more intimate, more personal. The texts were from someone named Aidan. At first, I didn't recognize the name, but the more I read, the more I realized that Claire and Aidan had been in constant contact for weeks, maybe even longer. They were talking about plans, secret meetings, moments that were clearly more than just friendly. The most shocking part? Claire had been telling Aidan that she loved him. My heart dropped. It felt like someone hit me in the chest with a hammer. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to confront her, but everything in me told me to wait. Wait for more proof. I couldn't be sure. Maybe it was nothing, right? Maybe I was overreacting. But my instincts were screaming at me to keep going, to find out everything. I stayed up all night, reading every message, every word, trying to piece together what had been happening right under my nose. By morning, I had the undeniable truth. She was seeing someone else. And not just seeing them. There was a deep emotional connection. She was involved with this guy in ways I never thought possible. The next morning, Claire woke up like everything was fine. She greeted me with a smile, asked how I slept, and started talking about her day. But I couldn't focus on anything she was saying. I was too lost in my head, replaying everything I had read on her phone. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to my face like this? I had to know more. I needed to confront her, but I wasn't ready to do it blindly. I needed proof. I needed her to confess, not just for my peace of mind, but because I couldn't carry this weight of uncertainty any longer. So, I decided to follow her. I had no plan, no clear idea of what I was hoping to find. But I knew I couldn't just sit back and pretend everything was normal anymore. That afternoon, when she told me she was going to run errands, I decided to follow her. I had to see where she was going, what she was doing. Claire drove to a small coffee shop in town. It didn't seem suspicious at first. People go to coffee shops all the time. But then, something happened that made my blood run cold. I saw him. Aidan. He was sitting at one of the tables, waiting for her. I couldn't hear the conversation from where I was standing, but I saw the way she smiled at him when she sat down. That smile. The same smile she gave me when we first met. The one I thought was reserved for me. They spoke for a while. The way they leaned in, the way she touched his hand. I could see it clearly now. There was no denying it. This wasn't just a casual coffee between friends. This was something deeper. Something more. The feeling in my chest grew tighter, and I didn't know what to do with the storm of emotions inside me. I decided to leave. I couldn't watch anymore. I couldn't stomach seeing the woman I loved so completely involved with someone else. I spent the rest of the day pacing around the house, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. How do I confront her? What do I say? I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into a chasm I wasn't sure I was ready to fall into. That night, when she came home, I didn't say anything. I didn't even ask about her day. The silence between us was deafening. I had no idea how to handle what I knew. I had no idea where to go from here. But I couldn't let this go. I couldn't pretend I didn't see what was happening. The question was, what was I going to do about it? The following days were a blur. Every interaction with Claire felt like a performance, me pretending that nothing had changed and her acting like everything was fine. I could barely look her in the eyes without seeing Aidan in my mind. It was like there was a third person in our home, lurking in the shadows, watching our every move. Every word she spoke felt like a lie, every smile, a mask. That morning, I had decided that I couldn't keep up the charade anymore. I needed to know what had happened between them, and I needed to know the truth from Claire. I wasn't going to continue living in this painful limbo, unsure of whether she was still the woman I married or if I was just holding on to a ghost of who she used to be. But confronting her, it was a different kind of fear. Not the fear of what she'd done, but the fear of losing everything. I spent hours trying to figure out how I would approach it. I could just ask her outright, but I wasn't sure I could stomach hearing her denial. I didn't want her to lie to my face, and I didn't want to be the guy who had to beg for the truth. Still, I couldn't keep quiet. The uncertainty was unbearable. I needed to find out how deep this went. By the time Claire returned home that evening, I had decided on my plan. I wasn't going to give her the opportunity to make up an excuse or dodge the conversation. As soon as she walked through the door, I would confront her with everything, no more pretending. But she wasn't the same Claire I'd known. The woman I had spent years with, the one who used to laugh at my silly jokes, had become someone different. She walked in, smiling, holding a small bag from the store, as if nothing had changed. She kissed me on the cheek and went to the kitchen to unpack her things. Something inside me snapped. "Claire," I said, my voice steady but cold. "We need to talk." She stopped what she was doing, her body stiffened. Her eyes darted over to me as if she already knew what was coming. For a moment, she didn't say anything. The silence between us felt heavy, suffocating. Finally, she sighed and wiped her hands on a dish towel. "What is it, Alex?" Her voice had a strange edge to it, a tension I hadn't heard in a long time. I swallowed hard. "I know about Aidan." Her face immediately turned pale. The color drained from her cheeks, and I could see her struggling to maintain her composure. She didn't speak right away, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't ready for what was about to unfold. She started, but the words caught in her throat. She took a step back, almost as if she was preparing for an escape. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want this, Alex. I didn't want to hurt you." The words hit me harder than I expected. They weren't an apology. They weren't a confession. It was a defense, a way to protect herself from what was coming next. "You didn't want this?" I repeated, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Then why did you let it happen? Why did you let him into our life? Into our marriage?" She hesitated for a moment, then looked away, not meeting my gaze. It started off so small. Just a few messages. A few conversations. I didn't know it would turn into this. I could barely hear her anymore. The way she spoke, like it was some sort of accident, something that just happened without her control. It was insulting. She wasn't sorry. She was just trying to justify it. "How long has this been going on, Claire?" I demanded. "How long have you been seeing him? How long have you been lying to me?" She stayed silent, and for a long moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. But then she let out a shaky breath and spoke the words that I'd feared hearing, but somehow had known all along. "It's been months, Alex. Since last summer. Months. All that time. She had been carrying on this secret life, lying to my face, pretending everything was fine when she was with him. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to break something, to do anything to release the anger that was flooding my veins. But instead, I just stood there, staring at the woman I thought I knew. The woman who had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words felt empty. There was no remorse in her voice, no real regret. It was a hollow apology, something to fill the silence. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Claire," I said, my voice low but firm. "You've shattered everything. This isn't just something we can fix with a few words." I could see the guilt in her eyes, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to undo what had been done. I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way again. I didn't know if I even wanted to. She walked toward me, reaching out, her hand trembling. "Please, don't leave. We can work through this, I swear. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you." I recoiled at her touch. Love? How could she say that now, after everything? How could she pretend that love still existed between us when she had been planning a future with someone else? I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I felt 1,000 emotions at once. Anger, betrayal, confusion, sorrow. But most of all, I felt a deep, aching sense of loss. The life I thought I had was crumbling before me, and I had no idea what the next step was. I need time, Claire. I need space, I muttered. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't do this right now. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, helpless and broken. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I needed to clear my head. I needed to figure out what to do next. But deep down, I knew the truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next few days were an unbearable haze. I was stuck in a perpetual cycle of confusion and anger. I could barely focus at work, every thought consumed by what Claire had confessed. She had been with Aidan for months, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. Their secret meetings, the lies, the way she looked at him. It made my stomach churn. It was as if my entire world had shifted, and I was left to navigate a landscape of betrayal and heartache, with no guide on how to find my way back. Claire tried, or at least I think she did. She sent me messages, left me notes, all with the same plea. We can work through this. Please, I'm sorry. But I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. How do you rebuild something that's been broken so completely? How do you repair a heart that's been shattered by someone you thought would never hurt you? I didn't have answers. In fact, I wasn't sure I even wanted answers. The only thing I knew for certain was that I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I couldn't look at the place where she and Aidan had shared their secrets without feeling like I was suffocating. I needed to get away. So I packed a bag. I didn't tell Claire where I was going. She didn't ask, either. It was like the words we needed to say to each other had disappeared. I checked into a small hotel on the edge of town, far enough to feel disconnected, but close enough to where I could still come back if I needed to. The silence of the room was deafening. The world outside seemed to move on without me, while I sat there, completely stuck in a reality I didn't recognize. It was a strange feeling, being alone with my thoughts. Part of me wanted to call Claire, to hear her voice and maybe find some comfort. But the other part of me knew that calling her would only make this worse. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and no amount of comforting words could fix that. The first night in the hotel was the hardest. I couldn't sleep, couldn't turn off the thoughts racing through my head. I kept thinking about all the times Claire had come home late, all the excuses she had made, all the moments I had let slide because I trusted her. I could hear her voice in my mind, apologizing over and over again, but it felt hollow. What was she sorry for? For getting caught? Or for the hurt she had caused me? The next morning, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The hotel was in a quiet part of town, and I didn't mind the solitude. The cool morning air helped to calm my nerves, but it didn't stop the ache in my chest. As I walked, I kept replaying everything that had happened. My mind kept returning to Aidan. Who was he? What did he have that I didn't? I couldn't stop comparing myself to him, even though I knew it wasn't healthy. But the question lingered. What did Claire see in him? That afternoon, as I wandered aimlessly around the town, I bumped into someone I didn't expect to see. Jonas, one of my old friends from college. He was passing through town for work and recognized me as I was sitting on a bench outside a cafe. We caught up for a bit, talking about the usual stuff. Old friends, random memories, the usual distractions. But as the conversation shifted, I found myself telling Jonas a bit about what had happened with Claire. It wasn't planned, but once the words started coming out, I couldn't stop. Jonas was sympathetic, but, to my surprise, not entirely shocked. When I mentioned Aidan's name, his face seemed to shift slightly. He didn't say much at first, but I could tell he knew something. I asked him if he'd ever heard of Aidan, and he looked around, almost as if he were checking if anyone was listening, before lowering his voice. Yeah, I know him. I didn't want to say anything, but Claire and Aidan, they've been close for a while. You probably don't know this, but he's been around for a long time, even before you two got serious. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I hadn't expected that. Aidan had been in the picture before I even knew Claire. My mind started racing. What was Claire really hiding? How far back did this relationship go? Jonas noticed my confusion and gave me a sympathetic look. I don't want to get into all the details, but Aidan, well, he's been one of those guys. You know the type. Charming, a little dangerous, and good at getting what he wants. But Claire, she's not the type to just jump into something like this without reason. There's more going on here than just an affair. More. I repeated, barely able to comprehend what he was saying. What do you mean? Jonas hesitated, clearly wrestling with whether or not he should say more. He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. I don't have all the answers, man. But if you're asking why Claire would go for someone like Aidan, I think you need to understand something else first. I was hanging on every word, desperate to understand what had been happening behind my back. I didn't know if I wanted the truth, but it was becoming clear that I couldn't keep living in this fog of ignorance. Jonas leaned in closer, his voice quieter now. Claire's not the person you think she is, Alex. I think you're missing a bigger picture. Maybe it's time you look at things from a different angle. I didn't know what to make of it. My whole life had just been turned upside down, and now, even my closest friends were telling me things I didn't want to hear. I wasn't sure who to trust anymore. Everyone was telling me to take a step back, to reevaluate, but no one was giving me concrete answers. What had Claire really done? And why? That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the edge of discovering something much bigger than just a simple affair. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe, just maybe, I had been blind to things I wasn't meant to see. The more I tried to make sense of it, the more it all seemed to fall apart. I had to figure out what to do next. But the deeper I dug, the more questions I found, and the more dangerous the truth seemed to be. I couldn't stop thinking about what Jonas had said. His words haunted me. Claire's not the person you think she is. I kept repeating that line in my mind over and over again, trying to make sense of it. What did he mean by that? Was there something I had missed? Something that could explain why Claire had acted the way she did? The more I thought about it, the more it felt like I had been living in a fog, not seeing what was right in front of me. The next day, I made a decision. I couldn't keep hiding away in that hotel, alone with my thoughts. I had to go back home. I needed to face Claire, but more importantly, I needed answers. I had tried to pretend that I didn't know anything, but that had only made the situation worse. The truth was that I was scared, scared of what I might find, scared of what it would mean for my marriage, for my life. But no more running. I had to confront this head on. When I got home, the house felt colder than usual. The silence between Claire and me was suffocating. She was sitting in the living room, reading a book, her back turned to me. She didn't acknowledge my presence at first, as if she didn't know how to face me either. I stood there, watching her for a moment, unsure of what to say. The woman I had shared so much with was now a stranger to me, and that stung more than I cared to admit. Claire, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. We need to talk. She looked up from her book, her eyes immediately filled with guilt. For a second, I thought she might finally admit everything. Maybe break down, apologize, tell me the truth. But instead, she set the book aside and stood up, her hands shaking slightly. I know, she said, her voice tight. I've been thinking about everything, and I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to make this right, Alex. There it was again. The words. The endless apologies. But the more I heard them, the emptier they felt. She didn't need to apologize. She needed to be honest. I needed to know why she had done what she did, why she had lied to me for so long. Why, Claire? I asked, the question coming out more desperate than I intended. Why did you do this? Why did you betray me? She hesitated, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. It was as if she was fighting with herself, trying to decide if she should finally tell me everything or keep hiding the truth. When she spoke, her voice cracked. I never meant to hurt you. But things haven't been the same for a while, Alex. I don't know when it started, but I felt like I was losing myself, and I didn't know how to stop it. Aidan, he was there when I needed someone to talk to. I didn't go looking for this. I swear. I listened, but it felt like the words weren't reaching me. She was still trying to justify what she'd done, to explain it away like it was just a mistake. A mistake? This wasn't some accidental slip-up. This was an affair, a betrayal that had lasted months, hidden behind the walls of our home. I couldn't just let her off with excuses. You did look for it, Claire, I said, my voice rising now. You made a choice. Every time you met him, every time you lied to me, you made a choice. And you knew what you were doing. Don't try to pretend it was some accident. She recoiled slightly, as if my words had hit her harder than I had expected. Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not yet. Not when the truth was still so elusive, still so tangled in lies. I don't know how it happened, she said, almost pleading now. Aidan wasn't supposed to be anything more than a friend. I just wanted someone who could understand me. I didn't want to lose you, Alex. But I didn't know how to fix myself, and I didn't know how to tell you. I clenched my fists, trying to hold on to whatever shreds of composure I had left. So what now, Claire? Are you telling me you've been confused this whole time? That you didn't know what you were doing? You didn't know you were destroying everything we built together? The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Claire stood there, her gaze fixed on the floor. She didn't seem to have an answer. Maybe she was hoping I would give her one, but I couldn't. Not anymore. The damage had already been done. Suddenly, an unsettling thought crossed my mind. Aidan. I didn't know anything about him except for the few details Jonas had mentioned. What if there was more to this than just a broken marriage? What if Aidan was more than a man who had stolen my wife's heart? What if he was someone I should be worried about? Claire, I said, my voice quieter now, though there was a sharp edge to it. Tell me the truth. Is there something else going on here? Something I need to know about Aidan? She froze. Her face went pale again, and I could see the fear in her eyes. What do you mean? She asked, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. I'm asking if there's more to this. Is Aidan connected to something you're not telling me? Is there something I'm missing? Claire's eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape. Her lips trembled, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of panic. I don't know what you're talking about. He's just someone I met at work. Her voice lacked conviction. It was a cover-up, and I could tell. There was something she wasn't saying, something she was hiding from me. The tension in the room grew thicker, suffocating both of us. I didn't want to push her too far, but I couldn't let her go without knowing the full story. I had to know what Aidan meant to her, and why he was so important. Something told me this wasn't just an affair, it was the tip of the iceberg. Claire, I said, my voice low but firm. Tell me everything. Now. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, she looked like she was about to crack. But then she turned away, her face twisted with guilt. I can't, she whispered. I'm sorry, Alex. I just can't. I stood there, staring at her, the weight of her silence pressing down on me. I didn't know what I was waiting for anymore. I didn't know what to believe. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. There was more to this story, and I was going to find out what it was, no matter the cost. The silence between us was unbearable. Claire sat on the couch, her body hunched over, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I could see the tears starting to form in her eyes, but I didn't feel pity for her anymore. I felt betrayed, confused, lost. My mind was racing, replaying everything. Her lies, the moments I'd missed, the signs I'd ignored. Every word she had said sounded like a half-hearted excuse, a way to distance herself from the reality of what she had done. I didn't know how to make sense of this anymore. I kept thinking back to the night when I first saw Aidan with Claire, their embrace too intimate, their connection too deep for it to be anything but more than a friendship. The thought of her with him, laughing, sharing moments I wasn't a part of, made my blood run cold. How long had this been going on? Had I been so blind to everything around me? Claire, I said, my voice barely audible, but the weight of it was undeniable. Tell me the truth. Is Aidan the only reason things fell apart between us? Or is there something else? Her face paled, and she looked away, almost as if she couldn't bear to face me. For a long time, she didn't answer. I could see her shoulders trembling, but I couldn't tell if it was from guilt or something else. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. Aidan is complicated, Alex. He wasn't just someone I met at work. He was, she paused, as if gathering the courage to say what was clearly difficult for her. He was someone who listened. Someone who made me feel like I was important again. I felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over me. Important? You were important to me, Claire. You still are. I'm your husband. Was I not enough? Her eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head. It wasn't about you, Alex. It was about me. I lost myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I thought I needed to escape, to find something. Someone who could make me feel like I wasn't just stuck in the routine of everything. I stood there, trying to process her words. I didn't know how to respond. She was telling me things that didn't make sense, things that seemed to excuse what she had done, things that made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but instead, I just stood there, frozen. The truth was, I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. There was something in her eyes, something that wasn't just regret, but fear. Fear of the truth, fear of losing everything. I saw it in the way she avoided looking at me, in the way her voice trembled when she spoke. She was hiding something. I could feel it in my bones. I had to know what it was. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. You're not telling me everything, Claire. You're still hiding something. I can feel it. What aren't you saying? Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a real panic flicker in her expression. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, like she didn't know how to escape the trap she had built for herself. I can't, Alex. I don't know how to explain it. Her voice cracked. I've already hurt you so much. Please don't ask me to say more. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. You owe me that, Claire. You owe me the truth. All of it. I can't keep living with this. If there's something bigger than just this affair, if there's something that's been going on behind my back, then I have to know. I won't live like this anymore. She was trembling now, visibly breaking down. Her body seemed smaller somehow, like the weight of her own secrets had crushed her. She wiped away a tear and stood up, backing away from me. It's not what you think, Alex. It's not. It's not just Aidan. There's something more. My heart raced, my pulse hammering in my ears. What do you mean, Claire? What is it? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked away again, her breath shallow and uneven. She stopped herself, as though trying to find the right words. I didn't just get involved with Aidan because I was unhappy. There's more to it. A lot more. I was done with the games. I stepped forward again, taking hold of her arm gently but firmly. Claire, you're scaring me. What are you talking about? What else is there? For a moment, she seemed to fight with herself, her eyes darting to the door like she wanted to run, to escape this conversation. But finally, she broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't want to hurt you. But Aidan, he's not just some guy I met at work. He's connected to something much bigger than what you know. Something I should have told you about long ago, but I didn't want to drag you into it. I took a step back, my mind racing. What do you mean, connected to something bigger? What the hell is going on, Claire? She shook her head, looking lost, like she didn't even know where to start. Her voice was barely above a whisper now. Aidan's not just a random person. He's been involved with dangerous people. People I never should have gotten involved with. But when things started to fall apart between us, when I felt like I was losing control, he came into my life and her voice broke again, and she collapsed onto the couch, her hands covering her face. The words she had left unspoken hung in the air, heavy with the weight of something I couldn't yet understand. I stood there numb. What dangerous people, Claire? What are you talking about? She looked up at me, her eyes wide and filled with fear. I should have told you before. I should have trusted you. But I didn't. Aidan, he's been trying to protect me from these people. People who want things from me. Things I can't explain. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. I couldn't process what she was saying. Was this all part of the story? Was Aidan really just the tip of the iceberg? Or was I caught in something much darker than I had ever imagined? I needed to know the truth. I couldn't walk away from this. But the deeper we went, the more the answers slipped through my fingers. And the more I realized, nothing would ever be the same again. The words Claire had just spoken hung in the air like a weight, pressing down on me with a suffocating force. Dangerous people. The phrase echoed in my mind, but I couldn't make sense of it. What was she saying? How had I ended up here, standing in the middle of a whirlwind of lies, secrets, and now, apparently, threats I hadn't even known existed? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, but nothing felt real anymore. Everything was fractured. The woman I thought I knew, the life I had been living, none of it seemed to matter now. All I had was this. Claire, crying in front of me, telling me that everything I thought I understood was a lie. That there were people I didn't know, people who had been manipulating our lives in ways I couldn't even begin to fathom. Claire, I said, my voice unsteady. You need to explain everything to me. Right now. I can't keep going in circles. You're telling me there are people after you? That Aidan is involved in something dangerous? What does that even mean? Why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't you trust me? She wiped her eyes, her face pale and strained. I could see that she was still trying to hold herself together, but the more she tried to explain, the more it became clear that she didn't have control over the situation. This wasn't just about an affair. This was about something much darker, something far beyond the scope of what I could have ever imagined. I didn't want to pull you into it, Claire whispered, her voice trembling. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I couldn't. Aidan. He got involved with these people long before we ever met. I didn't know the full story. I thought he was just helping me, but it turns out he's been caught up in something bigger than either of us. I stepped back, trying to make sense of what she was saying. It felt like I was hearing her voice from a distance, as if I was trapped in some nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. What kind of people, Claire? What are you talking about? I need you to be clear. She looked at me, her face haunted, as if revealing more would open a door she couldn't close. Aidan's involved with a group of people who control things behind the scenes. Money, power, influence. They operate in the shadows, and Aidan, he's their connection. I didn't know the extent of it until it was too late. I didn't want to believe it. I felt a sickening realization spreading through me. Money, power, influence. This wasn't just some affair gone wrong. This was something far more complicated and far more dangerous than anything I had prepared myself for. Claire's connection to Aidan, his role in her life, wasn't just a casual thing. It was something she had kept hidden from me, something that had put her, and possibly us, in danger. So Aidan isn't just some guy you were seeing behind my back? I said, the words coming out sharp and cold. He's someone who's been involved in criminal activities? That's what you're telling me? Claire flinched at my words, but nodded slowly. Yes, but not in the way you think. Aidan didn't choose this life. He was dragged into it when he was younger. He doesn't want to be a part of it. But he's in too deep now. And when I met him, I didn't know. I had no idea. But I got too close, Alex. And now they know who I am. I felt the ground beneath me shift again. They know who you are. My voice dropped to a whisper, as if saying it out loud would somehow make it real. Who are they, Claire? What are you involved in? What does any of this have to do with us? Claire stood up and began pacing the room, her hands running through her hair in agitation. I've been trying to protect you, Alex. I never wanted you to get mixed up in this. I thought I could stay out of it, but it's too late. Aidan warned me. He told me I had to be careful, that these people were dangerous, and that I was a target because of my connection to him. But I didn't listen. I thought I could handle it. And now, I've put you in danger too. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, to tell her she had destroyed everything we had. But there was something in her eyes, a kind of terror, that stopped me. She wasn't just afraid of losing me. She was afraid of something far worse, something that was beyond our marriage, beyond the broken trust. There was a bigger threat looming over us, and I was just beginning to see how deep it went. Who are these people, Claire? I asked, my voice quiet but intense. What do they want from you? She stopped pacing and looked at me with wide eyes. Her face was pale, her body trembling with fear. I don't know exactly. I never knew the full details. But Aidan's been trying to keep me safe. They want information. They want leverage. They've been using him, and now they're trying to get to me because of him. They're dangerous, Alex. These people, they're not just criminals. They're part of something much bigger, and I'm caught in the middle of it. I could feel the panic rising in my chest. This wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was a life-or-death situation. I was standing on the edge of something dark, and I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. Claire's betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was pulling me into a world I didn't understand, a world that could have dire consequences for both of us. What do we do, then? I asked, the words coming out strained. How do we get out of this? How do I get you out of this? Claire shook her head, tears falling freely now. I don't know, Alex. I don't know what the right thing to do is anymore. I've put us both in danger. I thought I could keep it all separate, but I can't. I can't undo what's been done. I took a step forward, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. This was bigger than just us. This wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was a fight for survival, and I didn't know if we could make it out unscathed. Aidan wasn't just the other man. He was part of something that had already started pulling us into its web, and now we were both trapped. I didn't know what our next move should be. I didn't know if we even had a choice anymore. But one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same. The life we had was gone, and now I was left trying to make sense of this chaos. I couldn't protect Claire from the consequences of her actions, but I couldn't leave her to face this alone either. We were both in this together, whether we liked it or not. The weight of Claire's confession hung over me, a constant, suffocating reminder that everything I knew about my life had been an illusion. Dangerous people. I couldn't escape the phrase, couldn't shake the image of Claire and Aidan caught up in something far darker than anything I had ever imagined. This wasn't just about an affair. This was something that threatened everything we had built together. I had to face the truth now, no matter how much it terrified me. Claire's face was still pale, her body trembling as she sat on the couch, her hands pressed against her forehead like she was trying to push the truth away. She had told me the barest fragments of what was really happening, but there was still so much she wasn't saying. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't just need to know the extent of Aidan's involvement. I needed to know everything. There were pieces missing, and I wasn't going to be able to move forward until they were in place. I can't do this, Clare, I said, my voice low, more to myself than to her. I can't just sit here and pretend like everything is going to be fine. These people, they're not just going to let us walk away from all of this, are they? Clare looked at me, her eyes filled with tears, but also a certain resolve that I hadn't seen before. No, she whispered. They won't. They don't let anyone go. If they're involved with Aidan, they won't stop until they get what they want. And I'm afraid that what they want is more than just Aidan. I felt a chill run down my spine. More than just Aidan? What do you mean by that? My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't stop myself from pressing her further. Claire swallowed hard, her hands shaking. They know about you, Alex. They know everything. They know who you are, what you do, where you live. They've been watching us. They've been watching me. And if they think that keeping Aidan close will get them what they want, they will use me. They will use you. They won't stop. The world around me seemed to narrow in on those words. They know about me. The thought felt like a punch to the gut. I had never thought about my life being entwined with danger like this. Never imagined that someone outside of our relationship could be controlling the strings, pulling us into their chaotic web. Claire's tears weren't just for what we had lost. They were for the danger we were both now facing, for the situation that had spiraled so far out of control that we couldn't escape it anymore. We have to leave, I said, the urgency in my voice rising. We have to get out of here, Clare. We can't stay. We have to go somewhere, anywhere they won't find us. This isn't just about saving our marriage anymore. This is about saving ourselves. But Clare didn't move. She stayed there, her eyes wide with fear, as if something was holding her in place. I've already tried, Alex. I've tried to run, to hide. But these people are everywhere. You don't understand. They have connections everywhere. They won't let us leave. They won't let me leave. I stood there stunned. My mind was racing, trying to process what she had just said. I couldn't understand how deep this went. If Aidan was involved with a group that had this much control, this much reach, how could we possibly escape? Running wasn't an option. Staying wasn't either. There was no easy solution to this mess, no clear path forward. You think they're going to just let us disappear? I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. Is that what you're telling me? That we can't get away from this? From them? Claire looked down, her hands tightly clasped together. If we run, they'll come after us. If we stay, they'll come after us. There's no way out of this, Alex. Not without a price. I felt my stomach twist at the words. A price? What did that mean? What was she asking of me? What was she willing to give up to keep us safe? I didn't know if I wanted to know. But I couldn't leave things like this, not when everything was spiraling out of control. What price, Claire? What price are you talking about? I demanded, stepping closer to her, my voice tight with frustration. She looked at me then, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and something else, something I couldn't place. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a deep breath and ran her fingers through her hair, as though trying to calm herself before she spoke. She stopped, her voice catching in her throat. I've been thinking about it, Alex. I've been thinking about what it would take to make this right, to make us safe. I've been thinking about what I'm willing to do to protect you. Stop, I said, shaking my head. Claire, what are you saying? I don't want to hear any more of this. I just want to know how to fix this, how to get out of it. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know if I can keep going like this. Her eyes met mine then, and for a moment, I saw the real desperation in them. It wasn't just fear for herself anymore. It was fear for both of us, for the life we had built. I think the only way to make sure they leave us alone, she said quietly, her voice breaking, is for me to give them what they want. I felt a shiver of dread crawl up my spine. What do you mean? What do they want, Claire? What are you talking about? She looked at me, her face pale, and for a long time, she didn't speak. I could see the conflict in her eyes. They want Aidan to be their messenger. They want him to stay connected to me, to keep an eye on us. But there's a way out, Alex. A way to make them stop. I have to. I have to make a deal with them. The horror of her words hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. A deal? I choked out. Claire, what kind of deal? Her gaze dropped, and her voice became barely a whisper. I have to go to them. Alone. I have to show them that I'm willing to cooperate. And if I do, they'll let us go. They'll leave us alone. They'll let us live in peace. My heart dropped. The desperation in her eyes was real, but the idea of her going to these people, these dangerous people, alone, was something I couldn't bear. Claire, no. You can't do that. I won't let you. She shook her head, her tears spilling freely now. I have to. It's the only way. I can't let them destroy us, Alex. I can't lose you. I can't lose everything. I felt like the world was closing in around me. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was asking me to let her make a sacrifice I couldn't even begin to understand. But there was no time to think, no time to argue. The clock was ticking, and the danger was real. And now, more than ever, I realized that no matter what we did, there was no easy way out of this. The price for the truth had already been paid, and now we had to face the consequences. The days following Claire's confession were the hardest of my life. Every moment felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying not to fall into a bottomless abyss. The realization that we had been living under the shadow of danger, danger far more serious than any betrayal or affair, was suffocating. And yet, somehow, amidst the fear, the confusion, and the heartache, I found myself looking at Claire in a different light. She wasn't just the woman who had hurt me. She was also the woman who was trying to protect us, even if that meant making impossible choices. We sat together in the living room that night, the air between us heavy with unspoken words. Claire's idea to face those dangerous people, to give them what they wanted in exchange for our safety, still hung in the air. It was a decision I couldn't stand to think about, but a decision she thought would save us both. I knew she was scared, but so was I. The thought of losing her was unbearable. And yet, part of me still refused to let go. We couldn't let fear control us anymore. Claire, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper, I can't let you go to them alone. I won't. She looked at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. You don't understand, Alex. I can't let them hurt you. I'll go. I'll do what I need to do to protect us. No, I said firmly, my heart pounding. We're in this together. Whatever happens, we face it together. You're not going alone, Claire. I won't let you make that sacrifice. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry for everything I've done, for everything I've put you through. But I'll do anything to make this right. You don't have to be a part of this. Please. I took her hands in mine, holding them tightly, not wanting to let go. You've already made it right by being honest with me, by telling me everything. That's the hardest part. Now, we take the next step together. For the first time in days, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. She squeezed my hands and nodded, slowly, as if allowing herself to believe that we could somehow overcome all of this together. We didn't know what the future would hold. We didn't know if the people Claire had been running from would let us go, or if we would have to make even harder choices down the road. But in that moment, we had something stronger than fear, each other. And that was enough. The next morning, we made the call. Aidan had been the one who brought us into this world of shadows, but now it was time for us to reclaim our lives. We worked together, putting together a plan to deal with the people who had been controlling everything behind the scenes. It wasn't an easy decision, and it took everything in us to make the right move. But we were united, and that gave us the strength to take on whatever came next. When the meeting came, we didn't walk in with our heads bowed in fear. We walked in together, side by side, ready to face whatever was to come. Aidan wasn't part of it anymore, but his warnings had kept us alive. The people we met that day weren't as menacing as I had imagined. In the end, they were looking for leverage, just like Claire had said. But Claire's strength and honesty were enough to make them realize they weren't going to intimidate us. They backed down, seeing that they couldn't control us anymore. It wasn't a victory in the traditional sense, but it was a victory in every way that mattered. We had faced the darkest part of our lives together, and we had come out the other side stronger. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Claire wasn't going to make the sacrifice she thought she had to make. We both had something to fight for now. As we left that meeting, the weight that had been pressing on us for so long seemed to lift. The danger wasn't entirely gone, but we had taken control of our own future. And in that moment, walking out of that dark place and into the sunlight, I knew we were going to be okay. Together, we had found a way to move forward. I don't know what the future holds for us. I don't know what life will look like after everything we've been through. But I know one thing for sure. We're stronger now. The love we have for each other, the trust we're rebuilding, is worth more than anything we lost along the way. We walked out into the world that day, hand in hand, ready to rebuild. We had faced the darkness together, and now, the light felt a little brighter. Together, we had won.